In Chapter 10 of How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie offers an important lesson in the art of interpersonal relationships: you can't win an argument. The title of this chapter sends a clear message: while you may feel victorious in an argument by proving your point, you often end up losing something more valuable, the relationship or the goodwill of the person on the other side. Carnegie argues that avoiding arguments altogether is far more effective for maintaining positive relationships and influencing others. The central theme of this chapter is that arguments are counterproductive. Carnegie explains that in most cases, arguments don't lead to real solutions. Instead, they create defensiveness. When two people argue, the goal often shifts from finding a solution to proving who is right. This shift can damage relationships, create resentment, and make cooperation nearly impossible. Carnegie's key message is simple: rather than trying to win an argument, it's better to avoid the argument entirely. Instead of proving someone wrong, focus on finding common ground and understanding their perspective. By listening and showing respect for the other person's opinions, you can resolve conflicts more effectively without creating bitterness. The chapter begins by exploring the futility of arguments. Carnegie points out that even if you win an argument, by convincing the other person of your point, you've likely caused some damage along the way. Nobody likes to feel humiliated or proven wrong, and this often leads to resentment. In the long run, proving someone wrong is rarely worth the cost of losing their goodwill. Another important argument Carnegie makes is that people don't change their minds during arguments. When someone feels attacked or belittled in an argument, their natural instinct is to defend their position, even if they realize they might be wrong. Their ego is at stake, and this makes them dig in their heels. As a result, arguments rarely lead to genuine change in opinion. Throughout the chapter, Carnegie provides several historical and personal examples that demonstrate the futility of arguments. One of the most memorable stories is about Benjamin Franklin, who made it a rule to avoid arguments. Franklin realized early on that arguments rarely lead to positive outcomes, so he chose to approach disagreements diplomatically. This decision played a key role in his success as a diplomat and statesman. Carnegie also shares a story of a businessman who faced a potential conflict with a client. Instead of arguing, the businessman listened to the client's concerns and calmly discussed the situation. By avoiding an argument and focusing on understanding the client's point of view, he was able to reach a resolution that satisfied both parties. Carnegie's personal anecdotes further illustrate this point. In one instance, he avoided an argument with a colleague by simply listening to their grievances and agreeing with some of their points. This diffused the tension and allowed for a more productive conversation. So, if arguments are so harmful, what can we do instead? Carnegie offers several alternative approaches to conflict that are far more effective than arguing. First, he suggests that it's okay to agree to disagree. Not every disagreement has to end with one person convincing the other. By accepting that it's possible to have different views, you can avoid unnecessary arguments and maintain respect for each other. Second, listen without interrupting. One of the most powerful ways to avoid an argument is to simply listen. When you allow the other person to fully express their views before you respond, it shows respect and can prevent the conversation from escalating into a confrontation. Another important strategy is to find common ground. Even in the midst of a disagreement, there's often something you can agree on. By acknowledging these points of agreement, you help to diffuse the tension and create a more cooperative atmosphere. Carnegie also emphasizes the importance of acknowledging the other person's feelings. When people feel that their emotions and opinions are being heard and respected, they are less likely to be defensive and more open to finding a solution. Finally, use gentle language. When discussing disagreements, be mindful of the words you use. Avoid harsh or sarcastic language that could escalate the situation. Instead, use gentle, non-confrontational language that promotes dialogue rather than conflict. Let's take a moment to reflect on some of the notable quotes from this chapter. One of the most impactful lines is, the only way to get the best of an argument is to avoid it. This quote captures the essence of Carnegie's message: avoiding arguments is often the best way to preserve relationships and achieve better outcomes. Another memorable quote is, "A man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still." This emphasizes the idea that even if someone agrees with you during an argument, it's unlikely they've truly changed their mind, they're simply agreeing to end the argument. Finally, 9 times out of 10, an argument ends with each of the contestants more firmly convinced than ever that they are absolutely right. This quote underscores the futility of arguments, where instead of finding common ground, people often become more entrenched in their positions. Carnegie contrasts the outcomes of arguments with those of more diplomatic approaches to conflict. While arguments tend to create animosity and resistance, a calm and understanding approach can lead to cooperation and mutual respect. The chapter also contrasts the short-term satisfaction of winning an argument with the long-term benefits of avoiding conflict. Those who choose to avoid arguments tend to have more harmonious relationships, greater professional success, and stronger influence over others. While the chapter doesn't offer formal exercises, it encourages readers to practice the habit of avoiding arguments in their daily interactions. Carnegie suggests focusing on listening, finding common ground, and approaching disagreements with empathy and respect. These practices, when applied consistently, can help you resolve conflicts without damaging your relationships. In conclusion, Chapter 10 of How to Win Friends and Influence People offers a crucial lesson: the best way to win an argument is to avoid it. Carnegie argues that arguments are counterproductive, often leading to resentment and strained relationships. Instead, he advocates for a more diplomatic approach to conflict, one that focuses on understanding, empathy, and respect. By avoiding arguments, you can maintain positive relationships and influence others more effectively. How often do you find yourself engaging in arguments, and what are the outcomes? Can you recall a time when avoiding an argument led to a better outcome? What steps can you take to handle disagreements more diplomatically in the future?